Sukoi Gar. Greetings, I am Tad Larkin, the lore master of Manda-LORE, and today I'll be digging through the archives to elaborate on the 501st Legion. The 501st Legion, commonly known as the 501st, was a clone trooper and later stormtrooper legion of the Grand Army of the Republic and the Imperial Stormtrooper Corps. The origins of the 501st date back to the creation of the Grand Army of the Republic, some 32 years before the Battle of Yavin. A secret clone army commissioned by Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas on behalf of the Galactic Republic and at the behest of the fallen Jedi Count Dooku, the GAR was cloned from the famed Mandalorian bounty hunter Jango Fett. It would be discovered 10 years later by Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, who tracked Jango to Commando after he failed to assassinate Naboo Senator Padme Amidala. Already in the midst of the Separatist crisis, and under the threat of invasion, the Republic reluctantly granted Supreme Chancellor Palpatine emergency powers, who then approved the use of this clone army to defend the Republic. At the subsequent Battle of Geonosis in 22 BBY, approximately 192,000 clone troopers were deployed to the desert world to combat the droid armies of the CIS, and of those 192,000, elements of the 501st Legion were present. Though, at this point in the war, the 501st wasn't yet fully organized, and hadn't adopted their iconic blue pinstriped armor pattern that they wore later in the war. The 501st Legion wouldn't be officially organized until the beginning of the war's third and final year, shortly before the Outer Rim sieges. Following the disastrous Battle of Carteo, 1 year after the Battle of Geonosis, the Republic acquired a series of extremely advanced Spa'artai cloning cylinders, capable of growing a mature human clone in less than a standard year, as opposed to the Kaminoans' 10. While clone reinforcements continued to slowly trickle out of the Kamino facilities, a team of Kaminoan scientists, as well as some of the Spa'artai cylinders, were sent to a facility on Coruscant's moon, Centax II, to bolster the clone ranks tenfold. For the subsequent year, these flash-grown Fett clones, many of them future 501st and Coruscant Guard members, were grown and trained at the Centax facility, until they were ready for deployment. With their dwindling ranks bolstered by the Spa'artai Fett clones, a detachment of the 501st was sent to the intergalactic banking clan purse world of Maigito for a special assignment at the behest of the Supreme Chancellor. While Jedi General Ki-Adi-Mundi, Commander Barkera, and the 21st Nova Corps of Galactic Marines battled the main Separatist droid forces as they had been for almost a year, the 501st was sent to retrieve an experimental Maigetian power crystal for a secret weapon project. However, that wasn't the story they told Mundi, and he was under the impression that they were sent to destroy a droid energy collector. And after completing their mission, the men of the 501st became convinced of the Jedi Order's gullibility, and had their faith in them shaken. When General Grievous made a daring attack on the Republic capital itself and kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine, the 501st were present on Coruscant, and many 501st pilots participated in the space battle, and bought time for Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi to board Grievous's flagship and rescue the Chancellor. Following the Battle of Coruscant, the 501st was sent to Felucia to assist Jedi General Aayla Secura and the 327th Star Corps in bringing the Corporate Alliance stronghold to heel. That was easier said than done, however. Cut off from the main Republic forces and under constant attack by not just droids, but also carnivorous Accolade and hostile plant life, the 501st was able to hold out long enough for Aayla Secura to link up with them, and while they were being rotated out, she called them the bravest soldiers she ever fought with. After their stint on Felucia, the 501st was sent to assist Master Yoda and the 41st Elite Corps on the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk, and after breaking through the Separatist blockade, the 501st valiantly defended a Wookiee fuel refinery and drove back the droids. When General Grievous was found to be on Utapau, the 501st was rotated off Kashyyyk to assist Obi-Wan Kenobi and the 212th Attack Battalion in assaulting the world, and with their help, Utapau was taken and the cyborg general was destroyed. Following Grievous's death, The 501st was pulled back to Coruscant for what would perhaps be their most infamous mission yet, Operation Nightfall. When Chancellor Palpatine activated Contingency Order 66, every Jedi in the galaxy became an enemy of the Republic, and, under the leadership of the former Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, now the newly anointed Sith Lord Darth Vader, the 501st marched on the Jedi Temple, and slaughtered Jedi Masters, Knights, and even younglings. Years of psychological programming, conditioning, and their genetic disposition kept them from following their basic urges to not follow through with their orders, and though many would later privately reflect that they did not morally agree with killing beings they once looked up to, they followed orders out of a sense of duty. Nevertheless, in recognition for their loyalty to the newly self-crowned Emperor, the 501st were placed under the direct command of Darth Vader, and given the moniker Vader's Fist, a title they would soon earn in the coming years. Despite Order 66 killing a great many Jedi, it didn't kill all of them, and reports continued to spill in of Jedi who evaded execution and went into hiding. Though the Emperor would have hundreds of Force-sensitive agents to help purge these Jedi from his empire, Vader and the 501st were the vanguard force, and often took the most dangerous missions. At this time, the 501st, because it was often divided and detachments were deployed across the galaxy simultaneously, maintained 4 active clone commanders, Commander Oppo as the overall commander of the 501st, followed by Commander Vil, Commander Bo, and finally Commander Voka. When Darth Vader walked into a trap set by a group of Jedi survivors in one of the abandoned spice mines on Kessel, several 501st troopers descended upon his position and saved the freshly augmented Sith Lord from being overwhelmed. Shortly after, Commander Vil and his detachment of the 501st were called in to aid the 203rd on New Plimto against the native separatist allied Nosorians, and together they slaughtered the last remnants of resistance as the Nosorians tried to flee. Meanwhile, on Murkana, Oppo and his detachment of the 501st accompanied Vader to investigate a group of clone commandos who refused to comply with Order 66 and their escaped Jedi commander, Roan Shrine. Escaping Murkana and Vader, Shrine met up with a group of other Jedi survivors and attempted to take refuge on the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk. However, that would end when Vader and the 501st raided the world in an attempt to capture Wookiee slaves. Though Vader and the 501st would be victorious on Kashyyyk, before Roan Shrine fell to Vader's blade, he decapitated Commander Oppo, leaving Vil as first in command. The Emperor's next task for Vader and the 501st was on Bandomir, and there, the fighting 501st put down an insurrection of disgruntled Ionite miners. Unfortunately for Commander Vil, however, he fell victim to Vader's paranoia and bad temper, and he was force-pushed off a cliff by the Dark Lord. On Vaklin, Lord Vader and the 501st were tasked to hunt down and eliminate Jedi Master Chona Bene, who incited the local populace to rebel against the Empire, and with a brief struggle, the Jedi Master, his 2 fellow Jedi in hiding, and the Vaklin insurgents were put down. At the tail end of the year 19 BBY, Vader was tasked by the Emperor to go to the Atoa system to rescue the only son of Grand Moff Wilhuff Tarkin, and once there, he and the 501st were met by stiff resistance from the locals. Despite subduing the Atoa system and recovering Garrosh Tarkin, the entire debacle ended in a failed mutiny led by Captain Shale, where only Vader and 8 men out of 2 battalions of the 501st survived. Vader would proceed with his true mission, which was to murder Garrosh and make it look like the insurgents did it, to further secure Wilhuff Tarkin's loyalty and devotion to the Empire. Following this, the 501st received an equipment upgrade along with the rest of the Stormtrooper Corps, and cast aside their Phase 2 Clone Trooper armor in favor for shiny new Stormtrooper armor and a host of new weapons from Blastech Industries. Next, Vader and the 501st were sent to investigate a biological disaster that unfolded on Honaker during the 3rd year of the Clone Wars, and once they landed, they were accosted by the native Nogri. Being easily defeated by Vader and the superior technology of the 501st, the Nogri repented and revered Vader, and in exchange for the Empire's help in cleaning up their world, they agreed to be trained and serve as Vader's elite death commandos. In 18 BBY, the 501st revisited Kashyyyk again, this time at the head of a full-scale invasion, where Vader, meanwhile, hunted down the fugitive Jedi Kento Marek, who had taken refuge among the Wookiees. After dueling and killing Kento, Vader would go on to discover his child that he fathered in secret, and the Dark Lord took the toddler Galen Marek as his own apprentice, kept secret from his master. On the Emperor's homeworld of Naboo, the new Queen began to openly oppose the Empire, going as far as harboring Jedi fugitives and having them act as her own personal bodyguards, and it wasn't long before Vader and the 501st were sent in to adjust Naboo's government. Following the defeat of the Confederacy of Independent Systems at the end of the Clone Wars, a Geonosian separatist sympathizer named Gizor Delso discovered a secret droid factory on Mustafar, fired it up, and began cranking out his own private droid army, which wouldn't be noticed by the Empire until circa 17 BBY. It wasn't long before the 501st were sent in to take care of the issue, and after fighting their way to the surface, they laid siege to Delso's citadel and bombarded it from orbit, ending the brief reign of the largest of the CIS holdouts. In 12 BBY, the Kaminoans were fed up with their mistreatment by the Empire, who abused their cloning contracts, and bred their own secret army in a desperate attempt for freedom. Their independence was short-lived, however, because the 501st, with the aid of Boba Fett, who grew up with intimate knowledge of Kamino, were quickly sent in to put down the Clone Rebellion, which, of course, they did. Following this incident, the Kaminoans were placed on an even tighter leash, and though the 501st would still be comprised of Fett clones for the most part, the Empire branched out to other clone templates, and even enlistments for the Stormtrooper Corps. Upon the completion of the DST-1 orbital battle station, better known as the Death Star, the 501st Legion were posted there when a prison outbreak erupted in one of the cell blocks. Although the men of the 501st were able to get the riot under control, embarrassingly, some of the rebel prisoners managed to escape with a fragment of the Death Star plans, and as punishment, Lord Vader pulled them off their assignment to assist him in recapturing the stolen plans. This would turn out to be a blessing in disguise. Vader and the 501st tracked down the plans to a rebel-held facility on Polis Massa, and there they struck with speed and effectiveness, and although the raid was a partial success, the plans slipped through their fingers once again. Following the Battle of Toprawa, the plans found their way into the hands of the Alderaanian princess Leia Organa, and when combined with the other sets of plans stolen by Kyle Katarn on Danuta and Bria Theron on Toprawa, the rebels had a complete set of schematics for the battle station. Knowing this, Vader pursued Organa's ship from Toprawa, and in orbit above Tatooine, her ship was caught in their tractor beam, and Vader, with the 501st, boarded the vessel and captured her. The plans, however, evaded capture once more. When Rebel pilot Luke Skywalker launched the proton torpedoes that destroyed the first Death Star, several detachments of the 501st were still on board when it blew, delivering a crushing blow to the surviving 501st members' morale. Not long after the Death Star's destruction, the Empire launched a retaliatory strike on the Rebel base on Yavin 4, with the 501st spearheading the attack, and although the invasion was successful, the Rebels weren't destroyed, just merely driven elsewhere. 6 months later, on Shel Kanwa, the 501st assisted Vader in bringing the treasonous Governor Cheord, who was plotting to secede from the Empire as his own warlord, to justice, despite a minor hiccup with an Emperor's hand and her 5-man stormtrooper team. 3 years after the Battle of Yavin, the Empire discovered the new location of the Rebel Alliance base, and on the icy wastelands of Hoth, the 501st, led by General Maximilian Veers, overran the Rebels' defenses, and accompanied Vader in storming Echo Base. Though Hoth was a monumentous victory for the Empire, a year later, at Endor, the second Death Star would be destroyed, along with Vader and the Emperor himself, sending the rest of the Empire into disarray. While a ruling council, then Grand Vizier Sate Pestage and then ISB Director Isani Isard, tried to consolidate power and hold the Empire together, it eventually fragmented, as other Moffs, admirals, and governors began to carve out their own miniature empires, and with it, the scattered deployments of the 501st fragmented as well. It wouldn't be until Grand Admiral Thrawn consolidated power in 9 ABY that the 501st's legacy would be reinstated, and they were sent into the unknown regions to serve the Empire of the Hand, Thrawn's own buffer state he set up at the behest of the Emperor. The 501st continued to serve even after Thrawn's death at the Battle of Bilbringi, and in 22 ABY, a squad of 501st stormtroopers aided Jedi Masters Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade Skywalker in recovering the wreck of the outbound flight and defending it from the Vagari. By this time, most if not all of the Fett clones had died off, and due to reforms set about by the Chiss, some non-humans were allowed to join the 501st, a tradition which would continue over a century afterward. The Empire of the Hand was dissolved sometime before the Yuuzhan Vong conflict in 25 ABY, and the 501st was absorbed into the army of the Imperial Remnant, which eventually became the Fel Empire circa 45 ABY. In 130 ABY, during the Second Imperial Civil War, the 501st pledged their loyalty to Darth Krayt, who had led the Fel Empire to victory against the Galactic Alliance in a previous conflict, before double-crossing Emperor Roan Fel and taking the Empire for himself. Now in exile, Roan Fel returned to Bastion, the former Imperial capital, in 137 ABY, and after a rousing speech, he managed to persuade the 501st to fight for him, and they remained loyal to him throughout the subsequent conflicts. Although they had tyrannical origins as Vader's personal stormtrooper legion, the 501st would ultimately become a paradigm of professional soldiery, and their legacy was taught in military academies across the galaxy. This transmission was commissioned by 87 Poop Dealer. If you have any suggestions for future transmissions, don't be afraid to drop a comment. Special thanks to my patrons, Wildcat144, The Grand Pope, Zexend, JTroops1997, David Miller, AJ Can't Think of a Good Pun Right Now, Captain Chewbacca, Dave the Grave, Hugo Novotny, and Zim the Despot. If you'd like to support this channel, please visit my Patreon to find out how. Link is in the description. In the meantime, keep your comm channels open for future transmissions, and don't forget to subscribe. Tad Larkin, out.